So it's nice as meetups as all the minors and stuff.
Yeah, I just sent a message out from two of the meetup, the people that signed up, saying we're starting.
Oh, you did?
Saying we're starting in a few minutes. I mean, they can always rewatch it.
Yeah, they do too.
Just trying to. All right. Did you see my message come through?
What do you want me to look at, baby?
Did you get a message for it on your chat? Your chat.
So am I me? Who am I right now? Okay, so I can reply yay, I can say yay or something. Do I reply? Oh, I put the ball. Is that up?
About to right now. Yes.
Okay. Hey, everybody. We're back for Going Boldly. We just had our lunch break and here to kind of be part of the live audience and help facilitate Israel's information, his sharing, his presentation about digital marketing. So the way Israel and I connected is I went to a Phoenix Metro Chamber event, and Israel was there as an ambassador for Phoenix Metro Chamber. And Jill and Gary and I had just decided to have our first Going Boldly conference. And I meet Israel right away when I walk in the event, and because he's one of the ambassadors, and he gave me his business card, and on the card it said SEO. And I knew a little bit about SEO. I knew that it was a valuable way to promote yourself as a business, but I didn't know a ton about it. But I knew that some people were better at it than others. And the first question I said was, "Are you good at it?" And so we spent a lot of time talking about that. And then on the back of his card, it said that he was a public speaker. So I was looking, kind of trying to be spirit-led about who to invite to speak. So I was like, oh, well, I could use a website, because we didn't have a website yet, because he builds websites as well on WordPress. And we maybe could use some SEO for the business that I owned at the time, which was assisted living locators. I sold it a couple months later, but at the time I still knew that the way to connect with people, nowadays, networking or otherwise, a lot of that is through social media or on the internet. So I knew that he had some valuable tools that I needed to connect with to help, to facilitate some of the things that I wanted to get done. But then we ended up becoming friends actually through social media. He sent me a Facebook friend request a couple of weeks later, and I started looking at, wow, he has more potential than just to help me with a website. So anyway, it's kind of a fun part of our story. But so we basically connected through networking in person, but kept the connection through the power of social media. And we probably would never have stayed in touch if it wasn't for social media, because we exchange cards, but you exchange cards with people and you don't think much of them, and you can't really tell about their friends and who they really are until you kind of see them around, in a different environment than at a 20-minute meeting. So yeah, we thought today one of the first things that we did when we met, he was in networking groups, and he went and presented on Somoseo or Somo SEO. And that's the business he was just launching when we connected at that networking event at Phoenix Metro Chamber. So what we're speaking about today, or what Israel's speaking about today, and I'm helping translate it into less technical knowledge, because I have very little technical knowledge, is the basics of digital marketing. And then good, this is kind of fun too. So when I met him, he had a different logo, and we connected with someone through kind of more of a graphic designer that said, you know what, you can't really read your logo very well. And I'm like, oh, you're right. So he and I he's the technical, but together we created this logo with us both looking at it and changing it around and changing the colors and stuff. So yeah, that's the new improved logo.
The new improved logo. So I had speaker on my card, but I wasn't a speaker. I just knew that I had to put myself out there. I had to be bold in order to grow my business. I knew that. So I put speaker on my card, a little bit hesitant, but also knowing that that's what I was going to need to do. And when she came to a networking meeting and I was doing a presentation, right before I started speaking, she pulls out her camera and starts going live, like, oh, you don't mind if I go live? I'm like, oh, kind of hard not to say no at this point. So
yeah, because of his boldness and to me, he seemed very confident that he would want me to go live. Because why would he be speaking if he didn't want me to go live and tell the internet that he was speaking? Honestly, it was funny. So yeah.
So that's how it started. Here we go. But so I just want to kind of talk about some basics of digital marketing. Digital marketing is a really general term, but it basically just has to do with promoting a business through the internet. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. So we're just going to kind of cover some basics with
or a person, right? Or a personality, right? So Christine.
A person, an organization, a business.
So they call them social media influencers or what have you. Mm-hmm. So you can be just promoting yourself as a person and your knowledge. But that we actually helped Christine a little bit on her campaign for city council. So he went through the process on Facebook to become certified or
approved.
What have you. Approved.
You have to be approved
for politicians. It's more stringent. So yeah.
To run Facebook ads for politics and certain things, you do have to get special approval. So we went through that whole process and helped her with some
like
Facebook
half a day or something. But now we're set up and we can do it in the future. So yeah.
All right. So really trying to keep this simple. The whole process, even though there's a lot of moving parts involved, really just involves 3 steps. The first step is to evaluate, and when you're to evaluate something, you're kind of evaluating where you're at. So some companies are brand new; they don't have a website, like they're just starting from scratch. Some companies have been around a long time, and they might have a website that they don't really utilize. And then there's companies that are really big, but they want to expand. So evaluating kind of where the business or the organization or the person really is in kind of what they're trying to grow into, where they're starting from. So when evaluating, we're evaluating not only the person and the business, but we're also evaluating what they've accomplished so far. And so for a lot of businesses, if they're startups, then they usually are really just starting from scratch online. If they've been around a while, then they need some things cleaned up. They probably skipped some steps. So just kind of taking a look at everything that's involved in the evaluation.
Right, and of course, a huge part of the evaluation is goals and budget. All of us, that's one thing, these gentlemen and ladies that have the technical knowledge to promote us through websites and SEO, search engine optimization. It takes a lot of hands-on training and skill, and a lot of them don't learn it in college. There's degrees for it, but it's evolving so rapidly that it's really kind of trial and error. And they're in groups online where they teach each other. And then what really worked, what we decided to do was do it for ourselves. And so we do it for our own businesses, and we're learning while we're doing that. And then we can we can be more efficient at helping other businesses meet their goals.
Right. And so, and kind of what you're saying, so there's actually like a pre-evaluation where I can just kind of look at some general things. And then once you meet with someone, then you can do kind of a full evaluation based on what they're looking for, because what I see in just looking at things might be a little different than what they actually are looking for.
Or maybe they can't even really handle more business, but they just want to polish their brand, or they're just looking to, maybe they had their logo for years, and a lot of people get really attached to their logos. But they might need a little refreshment, and so it's a little bit more up to date. So I know with Assisted Living Locators, I used to be a franchisee with Assisted Living Locators. So Angela's logo, her brand that she evolved, a company came in and they just did a refreshment. So it's very similar to the old logo, but it's like more, maybe newer colors and just a little bit different looking, more polished. So people get, it's kind of like giving someone a makeover, you want to see where they're at. They might love their logo that you're kind of like, that
people do get emotionally
so
attached to their logos, so you kind of have to tread lightly. When you're saying that this logo's not readable, or it might be a great logo for a T-shirt, but it doesn't look good on a website, in the corner of a website. So those are the kind of things that we talk about. The second step is optimize. Optimizing is really just. It's really just kind of filling in all the blanks, and it's like when you write a business plan, you're kind of writing out the steps of how you're going to grow your business. So optimization is really just filling in all the blanks and checking boxes of what should be there. We'll talk more about what should be there. And then from there, it's going to grow, and you just keep expanding on what you're optimizing. So you might start with the Facebook page, and then you might add an Instagram page, and you're just going to keep adding those. And the more of those you add, the more you're going to see growth.
And some people in the building phase, in the beginning, they might use ads, and that will drive traffic to their website, right? But then some people call it, the word organic SEO would be what we did with one of our businesses, which we didn't spend any money on ads. So it was all the traffic that came and all the business that came to that website was through organic SEO. And that's when you're not buying ads. You're not buying that traffic.
And paid ads work for quick results. They're not as effective as organic.
But they work short term. Right?
Short term.
So sometimes they're part of a long-term plan, but sometimes they're just part of a short-term plan to get it going.
Yes. And the way I always say that is running ads is a short-term solution to a long-term problem, because usually ads are based on bids and auctions, so your costs are continually going up for when you're buying ads.
Where you might be competing with a very big company with a lot of longevity. Like when we owned Assisted Living Locators Tucson, the SEO was going well, and we were buying ads, and then all of a sudden A Place for Mom cranked up their ad spend, and then we weren't getting any calls. So even though we spent a lot more, I remember it was Thanksgiving weekend, we didn't get any calls, and so that's the problem with buying love on the internet. It can get very expensive.
Right. So starting with the evaluation process, so we really start with looking at the brand. So the brand is so important, and there's really two parts of the brand. The brand is like the company name or the organization name, and then there's the owner. And in search engines like Google, they want to see both of those. They want to see that this is a real person and a real business. So the brand is really two different entities, and if you try to cram that into one box, Google's like, well, wait a minute, Somoseo is not someone's name, and Israel Young is not could be a brand, but is it really a brand? So they're kind of weird if they're looking for two. They're looking for the owner, so a lot of people, owners, they don't want to put their name on the internet, next to their brand. But unfortunately, that is a really good way to build trust and establish your brand in search engines, especially when you're dealing with online. So in your brand, in your branding is going to include things like your logo, your color scheme, your message, your mission statement, things that you're trying to put out there, and that really needs to be consistent across your website, social media, and citations. And we're going to talk about citations later because I know that's more of a
and like something like the address. So we have friends that have a very successful carpet cleaning business, but they had moved a few times and they always use their home address. And so it confuses Google, the Google bots, if you have too many addresses that don't match. So one of the services an SEO person like Israel can do is clean up your map citations, like our CPA. That was something when she moved, she had a lot of, what the internet does is it scrapes the information and then puts all these directories out. So even though she didn't have all these citations that she did on the internet, the internet already has them out there. So someone like Israel has a service where he can go clean those up. So it just kind of tells Google, yeah, this is the same person, it's consistent, you can trust it, this is the address. And it should be consistent all over the internet. But our friend that has that, they have so many reviews and such longevity that it doesn't really hurt their business. But a newer business or a more competitive market, it's more important to have your consistent addresses all over the internet.
Yeah, and that can be used to an advantage too. But the main thing is that wherever you put stuff, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So with your website, there's a couple of things. There's the health of your website, and I'll talk more about that later. But there are unhealthy websites. So not all websites are created equal. There's lots of ways to make your own site. You can buy really cheap sites. They're just not the same as a really good, well-built site. So that goes into the health and the structure. And then social media. So when we're evaluating social media, we're looking at, okay, well, what platforms are you on, and what platforms could you be utilizing? Where a clothing company might utilize something like Instagram that's very visual, it's photographs. That's not necessarily going to work for a plumber. I mean, what's a plumber going to take pictures of? Like leaky water heaters? No one wants to see that. So no one cares if the plumbing company has an Instagram account. So it's kind of just a waste. There is some use for it, which we'll talk more about that later. And then in the citations, we'll kind of go into that more. But looking at reviews and looking at how things are set up online for that, evaluating that.
And in all of this, I think that people want authenticity. So it doesn't have to. So if you're not a 20-something and you don't want to be on TikTok, 'cause that's just not you, then don't be on TikTok. Just do maybe your clients are on Facebook and you're more comfortable with Facebook or whatever.
Good point. So is your website working for you? So according to internetlivestats.com, there's 1.95 billion websites, but only 200 million are active. So 90% of websites are just sitting dormant because someone figured out how to start one or make one. They might have even paid a lot of money for one, but they're not utilizing it. So, if you're going to have a website, it's important that you make it work for you. So that's really what we do is we utilize the website and all these other properties to, help businesses. So this is the health of the website. They call this core website value vitals, and this is a tool that's actually put out by Google, and it looks at mobile usability. So this is right now over 60% of searches are done through mobile devices, so smartphones and Android phones, iPhones.
And this is a website he just wrote or he just created not that long ago.
Right. So this is looking at some just kind of core fundamental things. This information is based on standards that are created by organizations, so they're not just made up. These are actually based on web standards. So this is just an example of, like Rochelle says, site we just built.
And this particular program that looks at this is free. So anybody on the internet can look at each other's websites.
So
and
you
see
could
how they
look at-
compare. So if someone tells you, I want your business, I want you to hire me to do SEO. You want to see how their website is performing, because it's interesting how many people say they can do something, but their own website isn't performing very well.
And that's the first thing I look at, you can look at your own site, but if you're going to hire someone, you want to look at their site. Do they really know what they're talking about? I had a client ask me, should I hire this person to run ads? And I just immediately went and said, use one of these free tools and took a snapshot. I said, well, they don't run ads, so what do they know about running your ads?
They might be okay at it.
They might, but they're not doing it for their own business. So.
Yeah.
And then performance, this is another free tool. This is actually looking at a desktop computer or laptop, so not a smartphone, which is usually you'll have a higher performance from a desktop.
And this is his handyman contractor business that he hasn't, we're not really promoting that, but it's.
We built this website for it. We've done SEO for it.
Yeah.
So just some statistics on search engines. Most people are using Google. Some people just use whatever pops up on their computer. That might be Yahoo, that might be MSN, it might be DuckDuckGo.
So if you have a Android, when you use your voice to say, take me wherever, it actually brings up Google Maps, but Apple brings up Apple Maps. And so sometimes your business, you're optimized for Google Maps, but if people are mobile and they're using Apple Maps, some businesses aren't even on Apple Maps.
Actually, a lot of businesses aren't,
Yeah.
because Google's been around. They've been doing this part a lot longer, even though Apple's been around a long time. They weren't really involved in the internet as much. They were more focused on computers and iPads. So this is just some interesting statistics. Google basically dominates the internet. So we always optimize for Google first. We do optimize for Bing and Apple and other things. But
you really, you focus on Google, and
Yeah.
then you try to.
those
yeah.
kind of, other than maps, everything else just kind of lies where it lies, because it's not, you got to look at, is the juice worth the squeeze?
And so that's what you were asking, search engine optimization. So these are search engines, and then you're trying to build your web presence so it's optimized for, so for example, when I first opened Doctor's Choice, we paid someone to run our marketing, and they built our website in Flash. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks. Sorry. They built our website in Flash, and I couldn't even find it. When I Googled our exact brand match, Doctor's Choice Assisted Living, I couldn't find it on the internet because it was built, the Google bots weren't looking for it. And I just found this out through trial and error. And so I built a free website on Merchant Circle, like one of these, we'll go into that later, where it's free. And I could find that immediately because it wasn't written in Flash. So then what they ended up doing is disconnecting that $2,500 website that looked cute, and then just building me a cheap landing page. And that's what I used the entire time. And then I had my cousin code it and hook it up to my Facebook page. And then I had him hook it up to something else, a video that I was given. So yeah, it was like I spent all this money on this website and Google couldn't find it. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
So in that case, a site that was probably a couple $100 replaced the site that didn't work.
Yeah, the site
that
I
was
needed, we would charge now about $500 for that, which is just a landing page. That's all I really needed. And it would have worked better for what I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. So website options. So Rochelle kind of touched on this. There's a lot of different options for website, but I basically have put them into 3 categories. The first one is a template site. So those are usually something that's done or almost done. They're really user friendly, so almost anyone can like take one of these template sites and just change the name, change the address, the phone number, things like that.
So an example would be?
So an example would be like a Weebly site or a Wix site. Some you might have seen commercials for Wix, sites like that, or a GoDaddy site.
But the positives would be that you can update it yourself. So
Yeah.
So you don't need a middleman.
And they're
to do
usually
it.
low cost, but from a search engine optimization perspective, they're highly limited. They're very, very limited on that part of it.
Yeah, so let's go to this one next. So this is the one, like when someone says, this is what I try to finally understand. So Israel's not a web developer. When you buy a website from him, he's a web builder. So when you hire a web developer, they take a website and they build it so really only they speak the language that they built it in. So then you're at their mercy. Like if you want to add anything to it, you can't just call your neighbor that maybe knows how to build a WordPress site, because a lot more people do. You have to go back to that web developer and go, and then you're at his mercy or her mercy for how much they want to charge you. And I'm like, wow. So most people don't. This is really needed for the big companies that want a lot of bells and whistles. Like they're wonderful for that. But then you kind of have to be in a contract with them and know what you're going to spend and that kind of thing. I'm not saying they're not very necessary, but for the majority of small businesses, a landing page built on WordPress for $500 may be all you need. And then you can optimize it. And if Israel moves away or whoever, there's a million people probably that can fix your WordPress site for you. So it's almost kind of like a combination of these two. It's kind of in the middle where it is a little bit more technical. Not everybody can do it, but a lot more people can do it than.
Yeah, web development is very technical. It's literally done by programmers, and there's a lot of different ways to program anything really, but a website. So one programmer may look at it and say, well, I'd have to start over.
Yeah.
So you cannot just, if you have a website built by a programmer, then you're not necessarily going to be able to just take that information and pass it to someone else. And typically they like to protect that code as like their own, and you usually have to pay them an hourly rate to make changes, even as simple as an address or logo. So what we focus on is called a content management system, or a CMS. WordPress is the most popular, and actually it's a large percentage of the websites on the internet are built in WordPress. It still has a user friendliness where I could show someone how to make some minor changes to it without damaging anything. And it has a reasonable cost, and it's extremely search engine friendly. So there's a lot of flexibility in making it SEO friendly.
So some of the clients that he'll help, they don't want a new website, and which is fine. And it's, so he can help them, and he can help them with like the branding and the citations and everything. So one of our real estate clients, they're kind of more near retirement, and they really could, benefit from a new website, but that's probably not what they're going to do. But I don't know how much you charged them, but it really helped them get on maps. Like it brought them they have a good brand in it. They have longevity on the internet with their brand, with their domain, but they weren't even showing up on Google Maps or Apple Maps. So they're number one. So they're like happy, yeah. But so he can still help people even if they don't want to build a new website, and that's without spending a lot of money. There's things that he can usually do that can help.
Yes, there's always something you can do, but starting with the WordPress site is ideal.
Yeah.
Because I can actually build a lot of the search engine optimization right into the site, so it's kind of ready to go. So if someone ever wanted to add things or expand, it's much easier just to start with.
And do you have a hosting slide do you talk about hosting?
I
So there's
don't.
so hosting's big, and that helps. We just switched our hosting recently, and that's made our performance better on our websites. Right?
Right. So,
I'm like, I think that's what
no,
happened.
so hosting is what hosting is where your website resides. So if you've heard of like GoDaddy, they can host your website, but they're not necessarily the best person to host the best company to host your website. So hosting is basically where your website is sitting on a computer somewhere, on a server, in a server room. So we found that hosting makes a huge difference in performance, and then there's also a lot of customer service aspects to hosting companies that really make a difference. So the hosting that we've switched to is definitely not the cheapest, but it's reasonable, and they have really great service. They actually move your website from your old hosting to this one for nothing or included. And
But that helped the performance on some of the websites that we've had for a few years. Well, Somo SEO is one of them.
Yeah, just moving them, and then they'll also do some speed performance improvements and stuff. That's all included with the hosting. So choosing a domain. So just for an example, a domain would be like google.com or srpnet.com. So if you're brand new and you had the option to choose a domain, and some business owners, they've had their domain for a long time, and age is important, so they might not want to change it or anything. But if you're starting brand new, there's just a few things that are kind of important in domains. So extensions is like .com, .net, .org. Well, there's like 800 extensions nowadays. You can get a .xyz, you can get a .biz, you can get a .live, a .accounting. Unfortunately, if you Google search something, you look down the front page, you're probably not going to see like a .live on the front page or a
So
.xyz.
this is the most valuable, and then these two probably, right?
Yeah.
So some people
these are
buy
ideal.
their brand or their domain with all of these because they don't. For example, Justice Center, I used to, I think it was justicecenter.org, they had .com, but I thought it was .org because it was a charity. You know, usually org is like a charity. So what they did is they had both, and then the other one would redirect to their website. So you can do that too. So let's say your brand is whatever, but you also own AZ Pest Control. So your brand is Storm and Norman, maybe, but you have a domain that's AZ Pest Control. Well, that's valuable, and then you direct it to you might own both, like stormandnorman.com or azpestcontrol.com, and then you can redirect them both to the same website, right?
Yeah, or you can do different things. You can make one a website, one a landing page if you want to run ads or something. Another important part of choosing a domain is the length. Ideally, you want to stay under 20 characters or less. So while Going Boldly, Scottsdale, Arizona might be a very accurate domain to describe the conference, or Going Boldly Inspirational Leadership Conference, it's super long. And you don't usually see those on the front page of Google when you search for things either. So, shorter domains and age domains definitely have some benefits to them. One of our clients actually had a really short domain, and he'd had it for a long time. That actually helped him in his rankings. So short domains work great.
And you buy them he buys them through Namecheap. That's cheaper, right?
Yeah, so Namecheap is a registrar. That's where you buy domains. So GoDaddy sells domains, Namecheap sells domains, domains.com sells domains. I found that Namecheap is the best. One, they're the cheapest. Two, they include SSL, which is security. GoDaddy charges you an extra $15 a year for that, and other companies charge you extra for that, and then or for the privacy.
But you can buy them on one site and then transfer them to the other?
Yeah, you could.
just-
After a certain amount of time,
Okay.
you can transfer domains.
Okay.
So availability and price, of course. Nowadays, not a lot of domains are available, especially
Short
domains with keywords or popular words that are used as brands. So like you're probably not going to find like a plumberscottsdale.com or a rooferscottsdale.com, but you might find, something less keyword friendly. So a big part of SEO is consistency. So we call it a NAPW, but it's your name, address, phone number, website. Like those 4 things, everywhere on the internet should be the same. So unless you have multiple locations, then those locations should be the same. Like, you might have 4 locations, but within those 4 locations, if one's in Phoenix, Chandler, Scottsdale, and Tempe, they need to be very structured well on the internet.
Your client that was the driving school, it was the same address, but like the suite was off or something, and that can mess up the Google bots or whatever, right?
Yeah, so with them specifically, they had 2 different home addresses before they had an office. So they actually had like 3 addresses for the same company, and only one of them was accurate. And then they had a variation of the company. One had an LLC at the end, one didn't.
But that was like one of the only things you fixed, and it helped them a lot, right? Or did you do a lot more?
Well, we built their website.
Oh, you did build a website.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those things matter. Some people have, if it's a couple in a business, they might have both their phone numbers on the internet. So that can be kind of confusing to Google and other search engines. And then websites, if you change your website, obviously that is like moving your address. It can cause some confusion.
And not just what you've done on the internet, but the scraper sites that go and do directories. You know how a Place for Mom and those other directories would take your assisted living and they'd stick it in all these different directories? Like you would be able to help clean that up too, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of websites that don't create their own information. They just go out and look at the Yelps and the Googles and these different websites, and they scrape that information, and then some of them will purposely put in misinformation to get you to see it, and then come and claim that page, and you have to pay a fee. So having misinformation out there, it'll spread on its own. It'll grow on its own. So keeping that accurate just saves you a lot of headache the sooner you can do that. So that's the NAPW. And then staying recognizable. So for us, Pressure Power Pros, we're the only Pressure Power Pros in Arizona. We own the trade name, but there's a Pressure Power Pros in New Mexico, and there's also one in Texas. So, and one of them is, Pressure Power Pros LLC. So it's a little bit different, but for us, something like that, which is actually more common than you think, but it's very important that we're recognizable so that when people look up Pressure Power Pros, they can tell us from the Texas and the New Mexico one. And we do that with our logos, our color scheme, our services, our business hours, things like that. And maybe even using the similar pictures and things like that. So people are like, oh yeah, that's the one in Arizona. So consistency is huge when you're doing search engine optimization. So what to optimize? I know this is a really busy slide, but you start with your website, and there's a lot of different components to the website, but it's really the fundamental thing before you do anything else. Optimizing the website, it's the first step. So that's why it's nice to start with a WordPress site, because you can do all these things very easily. So one of the things we talked about was domains. So URLs and titles are part of your domain. So we might have like pressurepowerpros.com, and then for Mesa, we'll have /powerwashingmesa. So that's part of, so making sure those things aren't just like ID equals 1, 2, 3 ? Just that's something that actually makes sense.
And some of them
helps.
are really great to be on. For example, we're on Better Business Bureau for the link. So Google likes this, that we're connected to Better Business Bureau. So sometimes, a lot of people think, oh, I don't really go on Better Business Bureau, but Google still thinks it's a good website to be associated with on the internet.
And
So-
the truth is, people do go on
Yeah,
Better
they
Business Bureau.
do,
People
but-
have looked us up on and
Yeah,
said they
they
found
have,
us up
yeah.
on Better Business Bureau.
Same with Yelp, like that on some of the search engines, not Google so much, but the other one, right? Well, anyway, Yelp used to bring you to the
Oh,
top
yeah.
of the page. So if you had a listing on Yelp, even though a lot of us love and hate, it's like a love-hate relationship with Yelp, it would help you, that citation would sometimes come to the top. So you kind of have to try to control, those sites. And just like Facebook, if there's a mention on Facebook, that'll be at the top of the page too sometimes, because they're such powerful websites.
Right. So we're calling this social media, and we're calling these citations, and we're calling these map listings, but there's some overlap. So technically a citation is anything that has your name, address, phone number, and website. So all of these things have a citation. But these directory sites is we're kind of more categorizing them as citations, and separating from like social media. So, most normal businesses figure out what are the platforms they need to be on for social media. Obviously Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn are pretty fundamental. If you're doing something that's a visual, like a product, then Instagram's great. And then anytime you can utilize video is always good. It just depends on your business. And then these are directories. The directories, they always show up on the front page. And they're usually like the top 10 plumbers in Phoenix or the top 20 pressure washers in Mesa. So it helps to be on these, even though you're going to be sitting there next to your competition, at least you're on there. So if people go on Yelp and they're looking at power wash companies, they're going to see kind of everybody. Then they're going to kind of go, well, I don't know what to pick. I'm going to go back to Google, and then they'll search again. They'll see, oh, well, I remember that one. I remember that one. And then so that familiarity helps people make decisions. So being on all these different directories with your citations, being in maps, anytime people are searching from a phone, they're typically getting map results. So, usually from your phone, you're just looking for like restaurants, or you're looking for a place you're trying to be at, or you're looking for a bank or something like that. So map listings are super critical, and with everyone basically using their smartphones to get around as GPS devices. So the last step is to grow. So, after you've optimized things, you just keep adding. You keep adding citations. You'll keep adding social media if it's appropriate. You'll keep adding reviews to your map listings, reviews to the directory sites. And there's different ways to measure growth. So this is a kind of a complicated program that we pay for every month, and it has a lot of numbers in it. And when you look at the numbers, it's you got to kind of like, well, what's important, So this number.
Is one of our competitors for one of our businesses, but it's been around a while now. You think they spend a lot on ads, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons why there's these numbers, but this one here would technically be the highest ranking. It has the most strength, so the most
this
power.
number DR is
And,
one of the big numbers that you look at, other than the performance.
Right. But that's basically the power of the website. But all power is just potential power. It's not actual power. So this number could be high, but it might not necessarily get you results. It just has potential. So they say knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is truly only potential power until you go bold and take action, right? So links and referring domains, this is referring to connections to your website. So Google cares who's popular. And if Google is going through your phone and you got Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos in your phone, Google's like, well, they're pretty powerful people, so you must be someone. So Google looks at that, and it looks at your connections. So not all connections are created equally, so quality over quantity, but that's still not necessarily what's going to make it might be a nice number, but it's not necessarily the key factor.
And kind
So-
of just like with people, like that's been my philosophy for years. You know, that's why I'm not worried about numbers with connections, because quality over quantity for sure.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us that, you know, just in general, our circles are shrinking and we're wanting quality connections over quantity. I think especially since COVID, you know, I think everybody's circle's kind of shrinking.
So that's really the direction of the internet also. People used to just go out and just get 10,000 links and their
Domain.
websites would go up in rankings in the search engines. That just doesn't really happen anymore. You're better off having a few really strong quality links than you are to have, you know, 10,000 low quality links. But what we found with websites is the number that really makes a difference is the traffic and the traffic value. So if you have all these great numbers, but
What is that?
that's a ranking, it's a ranking.
Do you know what website that is? Isn't that us?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's us. So with traffic, with website traffic is really the most potential you're going to have, because if you have a lot of links and you have strength, but if no one's going to your site, then it doesn't matter. And then on top of that, even going a little deeper, if people are visiting your site but it takes too long to load, like it has low performance, they're gone. You know, they're going to the next one really quickly. So getting people traffic to actually go to the site and then them staying on your site is a good sign.
And calling you, like Google tracks that. Conversion to phone call,
Yes.
right?
And and maps.
And maps, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, these are just some tools for measuring growth. And then monitoring performance. This is what we were just looking at before. So, you know, as you're growing, you're adding pages to your site, you're adding to your online presence. It's important to kind of go back and monitor. That's Pressure Power Pros.
This is Pressure Power Pros.
Yes.
So he says that this one is kind of easier to get at, right? If someone does any SEO, that's kind of a given, like they should have 100.
These three are a little easier to get into the green.
Are you going to talk about accessibility later or no?
Yeah, we could talk about that right now. The performance has a little bit of outside factors like your hosting and different things like that, and your location. So,
But we can go on a web developer's website, a local one, the nice people, but their performance is really low. But they're selling that they can build websites.
And some of these numbers are really low.
And they're selling that they can do SEO. And it's not to be critical of them, but you know, most of us have such limited resources, small business owners. So for someone to, and that's what, a lot of people are suspicious of SEO because a lot of people that sell it really don't even know how to look and see if it's working, so.
Right, and so if the people selling it who are more technical don't know how to look and see if it's working, then business owners and managers aren't going to know how it's working. So this looks at SEO standards, the way the layout is built on the website. Best practices is similar, and then accessibility is really important. Accessibility is a ranking factor in search engines, and it's basically ADA compliance for the internet. So, you know, people that have disabilities use different tools to use the internet. They use screen readers.
And one of the disabilities is color. So a lot of us don't think of that, but color contrast for your brand or your website is important, so people that are colorblind can read it and that kind of thing. And Google likes that too. So that helps your SEO. So it all kind of works together.
So even just the text to the background, the color contrast that's involved in that, that can affect people that are colorblind, which a large percentage of men over 50 are colorblind. So accessibility is a big one, and then of course the performance. And this is the other site that we've built recently.
And you can clean this stuff up like performance without rebuilding a website. I mean, you can.
There are some things you can do to tweak it, obviously.
To help
changing your hosting, optimizing your images. Sometimes people just slap in an image from their phone, where your phone, most phones today create really big picture files. So if you can shrink that picture file down a little bit to what's actually needed versus just having the full, like a really big picture, that could improve the performance and help it load faster so someone's not leaving your site right away. And then the final process is really just repeat what we just talked about. So, reevaluating, after you've optimized and it's grown a little bit, reevaluating where you're at. It's like, oh, well, this worked and this didn't, or this stuck and this didn't. And some of this stuff, you're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. That's pretty common, actually.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just satisfied with the first time. And then they're just like, oh, it's fine. Or like, for example, one of his clients, they didn't realize, so obviously all this is just a complement to good business practices. You can't fix, if you already have a great business, then this stuff is just icing on the cake. And so sometimes, like one of his clients, they changed who answered the phone, and all of a sudden they were having like really poor conversion because the wife used to answer the phone, and then it became like an employee, and she just wasn't good at converting sales on the phone.
So they called me and they're like,
They thought it
hey,
was
we're not getting people. I'm like looking at the numbers. I'm like, you're getting the same amount of calls. I said, who's answering the phone? And they said, oh. And they went back and they fixed it.
Oh, interesting, huh?
Same client, another time, they said, hey, we're not getting calls. I went and looked at they were actually running Google ads. I went and looked at their ads had stopped, and Google never called them or anything. So we went in there, reconnected it, and everything started flowing again. So, some of these things, they could be simple things, but it's the free tools and the paid tools. Those are the things that we use to troubleshoot these things and solve the problem rather than just doing a bunch of stuff and charging people money for it. We're really focused on how can this particular business grow, and having a great reputation is one of the criteria that we use in selecting clients, because if someone has a bad reputation, it doesn't matter how much SEO you do, it doesn't matter how nice your website, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. It's not going to get. It might get better for a little bit, but it's just going to go back down. And then obviously if someone's in the press for something really bad, that's almost impossible. Someone made a mistake 10 years ago. We can usually bury that on the internet with just putting more stuff out there.
That's another service is reputation management. So there was like a little bit of negativity about me on the internet, and it's funny because that was before I met Israel, and now it's just all that, and it wasn't intentional, but just all because he did Going Boldly and citations and all that stuff. It's like buried. Like someone would have to really know specifically what they're looking for to find that now. So that's what everybody, the big firms. So if you have a pastor that doesn't like a video that was on the internet or a famous person, of course it's harder to bury. But what they do is instead of trying to get that off the internet, which is almost impossible once it's up, they try to bury it with positives. Same with a review. So that's why when you have a business, you want to get a lot of good reviews before you get the bad review, because the bad reviews will come, so that you want to try to bury those before they
one
have
person having a bad day could give you a bad review. And if that's the only review you got, then it looks really bad. But if you've already got 20, 30 reviews, and then someone gives you a 1-star review because they're having a bad day or you made a mistake or something, then I think people are reasonable. They can say, well, okay,
it looks more authentic.
They either messed up that one time or this person's just really behind being a jerk and targeting them. Totally understandable. But when it's your only review, then you're like, I don't know, it looks bad. I don't know if they're good or not. But
do you have any more slides?
That's it.
That's it? All right.
That's it.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Well,
we appreciate it. It was fun.
Does anyone have
it
questions?
was a lot of information, but if you need anything, give us a call. Oh, yeah, sorry.
So to keep up with the citations, and obviously you have to be a member of BBB and Yelp more so than just
A lot of it's free. It's just a matter of someone doing it. So a lot of business owners just don't have time to go on Yelp and create a page and everything. So those are services that we can provide, but you really could do a lot of it you could do yourself. It's just most of us.
How much should one expect to pay monthly for to keep
Good
up
question.
with it?
So it can be a
You
pricey.
have to pay. I think they've quoted me at least $200 a month
For
which is
BBB?
not a lot.
No, for
from
Yelp ads.
And that's
Oh,
just
for
one.
ads. I wouldn't run Yelp ads, but I would want to be on Yelp
But
and I'd
to
want
be on
to.
the first page on Yelp, like.
Well, no,
that's-
you know, if you can, on Yelp, you can't, because we did this and we did spend a little bit and then we decided to stop spending. So I'm not saying you shouldn't, but, you should definitely be on Yelp and try to get reviews.
I don't want to spend on Yelp. That's
Right,
what
I
I'm
wouldn't,
saying.
I wouldn't,
Okay.
but BBB, you pay to be on it monthly and I think it's like 50
55.
and you get a backlink and that would be when I would say yes.
So
So
with
month is
Yelp,
about what?
55 to be on, yeah, and then you create your own like page on there.
But you would recommend.
I would say BBB. That would be money well spent, right?
yeah, so with Yelp, you just want to try to get reviews on there. Reviews, getting Yelp reviews and people adding photos and stuff will move you to the front page. It's not easy, but that's how you do it without paying them $200, $300, $400.
I actually managed a catering company a few years ago, and they were on Yelp, and we had some great reviews, so much so that Yelp actually hit it.
Yes,
And we
they,
kind of,
yeah.
This is a legit.
I know, they did that to
client.
Dustin.
Yeah.
They did it to Dustin too.
And
Almost
and
all of his
I
reviews
spent
are
time
hidden.
on the phone trying to fight that off, and it didn't, I mean, they went nowhere. They said it's an algorithm, and it's this, and it's that. Well, it's a legit review.
Yes.
Like, why would I ask my clients to give reviews on Yelp if I'm not able to keep them? And they hid it because they thought it was too nice to be true. It's,
Yeah.
you know.
Agree, and what we've always told people is get Google reviews, but Google's actually starting to do that too. So, so they are starting to filter reviews. So, all I can say is just try to get as many reviews as you can. Right now, I know Google's easier than Yelp. Yelp is kind of a pain, but we still, so Yelp, because it's such a powerful directory, just like Google, those reviews that you do get and the information that's on there gets scraped by other sites. So you still need a Yelp because Yelp, they used to feed directly into Apple Maps and also into Bing. So when you're creating a listing on a Google or a Yelp, you got to remember it's not just Google or Yelp. Other sites are looking at that and they're going, oh, okay. And some of these sites are going, oh, well, you got 2 Google reviews and 1 Yelp review and 3 Facebook reviews. You got 6 reviews. Some of them are, so they're doing different things with it. So you just want to get as many as you can, positive
Yeah,
reviews.
on the sites that you can, like Verbo and those, they have to be verified stays. So those are really, in fact, we just became premier hosts on Verbo. But it was hard because you have to have a certain amount of reviews and a certain length of time. And so if you have one customer that gives you a bad review, because one of our customers gave us about like a 3-star out of 5. I think he just didn't mean to, and I'm like, wow, because we had long-term stays. So it was like 1 out of the 2 reviews
And he
was
didn't
3
say anything
stars.
negative.
He's like, good. He said, good.
Good.
3
3
stars.
stars.
I'm like, oh. Yeah, but then just recently, and actually, because it's most people give you a 5 unless they really have a problem with you. And he gave us 3 and he actually liked it. So it was just, so that stuff happens. It happened to me, care.com, because PK, I'm sorry, I keep doing that. PJ owns assisted livings, or did, now she's a manager. But you remember caring or care.com? They were like,
What do you mean?
this one was like the national one, care.com.
Okay.
They sent someone to Doctor's Choice that was looking for independent living, and they gave us a review that was kind of accurate, but care.com sent the wrong clients. And it was a bad review. Like they walked in and got it wasn't a good place for an independent living person, right? Okay. So I was like, oh, and that was on their, like one of the only reviews on their website. And that's like and it's a powerful website, but that happens, so.
So when you ask for a review of your clients, obviously nobody can do all of them. So do you just select which one you want to send to that one client?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's important to find out how they found you. So if they found you on
Oh, that's
BBB,
good.
then you want to send them a link to BBB. If they found you on like a Yelp, then send them a link to Yelp.
That's a good word,
so-
yeah.
Word of mouth, then you just select which one you're building.
Yeah,
so-
more people are on Google, but they have to have a Gmail account, of course. So sometimes people that don't have one for whatever reason, they might not know how to, and then sometimes it's hard for them to find it or whatever. So there are programs like they're called Bitly's, right? Where she could send them and they can choose. They can pick which one they want to review.
Yeah,
on. Those are nice.
What you could do is give an option. So there's software that will say you can put in like your link for Google, Facebook, Yelp, and Yellow Pages, and then they see all of them, and they can just click on one. But typically wherever people are searching is where they have an account. So I
like those too because you've probably got them from businesses, but it will say, "Oh, did you like us?" Yeah. Then you get the link to the review.
Right, it'll say, how's your experience? And it gives you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So if you thumbs down and it pops up a box, please give us a message. Yeah. Like, please tell us your experience. We'd love to help you fix that. And if they do a thumbs up, it just takes them straight to some options where they can leave a review. So there's software that we can set up.
And that might be worth it to you.
I've been asked, do you want to take a survey to leave me my five-star review?
Right.
Which bugs me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
You're going to tell me to do
Right, you're
that.
going to tell me. Right.
But it's probably something to put in the head. I don't know.
Yeah. So you can. But we just kind of do it verbally. So like he got a lot when we had a mobile notary company that we started in Tucson during COVID, and he got almost all of his customers from Google. And then he would ask them, because they found him on Google, so will you give me, if he had a good rapport with them, hey, do you mind giving me a Google review? And then he would text them or whatever. A lot of
and I just judged it on the experience. If people are like, I just wanted to get it done, but they're kind of annoyed that they had to pay for it.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
because it
already
was
thinking it should
cheaper.
have been free or
It would have been cheaper
$10.
if they went to the UPS store. And, you know, but if they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming. I'm like, hey, you know, would you mind doing a Google review? You know, it really helps us out. And I'll send them a link on the spot, because the longer you wait, the less likely it's ever going to get done. So I'd send them, I'd have it ready in my phone because I've already sent it to people. So I just copy paste it into that and send it to them right away. And, you know, still a lot of people will forget or just put it off and won't do it. But some people will do it. And so I wait till I have that good experience. I ask them right away and I text them right away.
But
and that's
those programs, like I know that our carpet cleaning friends have one. It was nice. I use them. So our friends own a carpet cleaning business, and I've worked with him a lot. He used to clean at our assisted living and just homes, but mostly at the assisted living. But now they have a program where you don't even have to talk to anybody. You schedule it, and then it asks for a review and a CRM or whatever, and then it bugs you for whatever follow-up and everything. So he probably isn't there, you know, manually doing it. So he's kind of a one-man show, you know, so it really cuts down on his time having to do that. But
yeah, so there are programs that kind of automated that process. You know, they have like a monthly fee or whatever. So that's
he got, we didn't have that many clients, and he got like 15 reviews in how many months for the
that
mobile
was over
notary?
probably 8 or 9 months.
And those were like, oh yeah, just from him asking and following.
It just depends on your service. So like people that replace windshields or clean windows, they can get reviews pretty fast because they do like 10 clients a day, you know. And a lot of times, you know, especially if you're windshield, like people just need it done. So you can get some businesses, you can gather them fast. You know, you might get like a couple a year. You know, it just depends on the business.
Just because you ask, you know, if you ask, I think that helps a lot.
I definitely ask. So
cool.
Any other questions?
Thank you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for coming.